Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we continue working on our project by adding internal waistband, belt loops and some back pockets. I want to start with internal waistband, which is very easy. You just Ctrl C, Ctrl V on your waistband, copy paste to make inner waistband. And to just differentiate between them, I want to add fusing to my outer waistband, because usually outer waistband is fused when we are sewing the waistband. And also rename my uh, inner waistband in property editor. For sewing the waistband, I hide my avatar. For using the superimpose function, you need to only sew one line. Just make sure you are not sewing more than one line. I want to start by sewing the upper edge only. I will sew upper edge of my inner waistband to upper edge of my outer waistband. Then on 3D window, click on it and use superimpose under. And also make sure this line is turned as well. And then simulate. Looks good. Now you can continue by sewing other edges of inner waistband, like lower edge. This seam you don't need to turn, but the end, which I use section sewing tool for sewing, make sure they are turned. And simulate. Okay, that was easy. Now we want to add some back pocket. I don't see in my image that there is back pocket, but I definitely want them in my pants. So I will add 2 patch pocket to my back. And you can make them by a rectangle tool. I want the height of my pocket to be 6¼ and the width to be 6 inch, but I give half of it because I wanna double it later. And I want the side length to be 1 inch shorter than the center. So I go up 1 inch at the side. And then I right click on this line and unfold pattern outline. This way I have the middle point of my pocket, and it will be useful because when I want to place it on my back, I want the center to be aligned with my dart. For the placement of the pocket, I can right click on this and clone as internal shape and place it where I want on the pocket. The good thing is that you immediately see it on your pant, and you can rotate this shape to have the perfect placement you want. And you can even measure with the internal polygon tool where it is. It is almost 1¼ from my center back and 1¾ from my waistband, which is good. Good for me, a little bit here. Okay. Now that I have this placement, I can press Ctrl D on my back pocket to have a linked piece. These are symmetrical, so you can sew them together. With a free sewing tool, I easily sew the outer edge of my back pocket to this internal line. And also make sure the seam is turned, which is automatically turned, so you don't need to be worried about it. And then in the 3D window, I can click on both and click on superimpose over. When I simulate, they are looking good. Then we can add top stitch later, but for now we can move away from them and sew belt loops first. For adding belt loop to our pant, we need the belt loop pieces first, and by looking at the image, I can see the belt loops are pretty wide. So I first start making one piece by rectangle tool. I start with the width of 3/4 and the height of 2 1/4. And then I check it against my 3D sample. Let's bring our avatar back. I want to check against my 3D sample to see how it looks comparing to the photo. So the belt loop is placed next to the pocket, almost here. The width looks very similar, so I'm happy with the width, but the length looks shorter on my photo, so I um, reduce the height by 1/8 and compare again. As you see, the lower edge of belt loop is almost aligned with the edge of our coin pocket. Now I see it is similar, and also consider that this fabric might have some folding, so it's better to have a little bit more than more on height than less. So I think this measurement is good for my belt loop. But you also need to consider that the lower edge of this belt loop is tucked into the waistband. So we need to add to the length. The amount we need to add is, I think it should be 7/8. Because you see the distance from here to here we measured before and it was 3/4, and it is sitting a little bit under 2, so I'm adding 7/8 to the height of my belt loop, and I do that with offset pattern outline. Okay, and I want to keep this line as the internal line because later I want to fold it there. So with the trace tool or I right click on this and trace as pattern internal line, because usually pants have 5 pieces. Okay, now that I have my belt loop pieces, I wanna mark my pant where this line are sewn. And as I said, it was 3/4 below the waistline. I need to draw with the internal polygon tool. The width of my bell loop is 3/4, so my line also need to be 3/4. And I copy this and paste it in the same position. And on the back, I can add it by, I can try offsetting my waistline 3/4 down and use it as a guideline. Okay, the one in the middle, I know it should be divided between the both sides, so I keep 3/8 on this side and 3/8 on the other side. So I can divide my internal line or split it at 3/8 and remove the rest of it. Sorry, first you need to divide it. Divide at internal. Okay, and here also we can split it, but you want it a little bit away from the side seam, so maybe split it on both sides by 1/2 inch. And then split by 1/2 inch. Now divide internal line and delete the part you don't need. Okay, I think it still could move a little bit towards the center back. So maybe with the arrow buttons you can move it a little bit away from the sides. Okay, now that we have marked our bell loops, we can start sewing them. Let's start with the back. Okay, we take our free sewing tool and sew this part to this part. Let me check if my internal line looks smaller. Oh, it's 1/2 inch. Should be 3/4. So make sure you are sewing this on top of the internal line. I don't want to add more points on my waistline. I just want to sew it with eyeballing. So here, let's do it again. From here to here, and I see from here to here. And the next one, I put it here. And this one, actually, I can add a point in the middle because half of it is sewn to the one side and half to the other side. I split the line and put the 50% ratio. Now I can sew this part to this part and sew this part to this part. And now I go for front. Now that I have sewn every belt loop to the waistline, I select all of them by holding Shift, and in the 3D window, right click on them and reset to 2D arrangement. And then I can use the superimpose over. Oh, this one was missing here. Now I can simulate. And I can now sew these internal lines with the section sewing tool, and now simulate again. Okay, now you see your bell loops are sewn where we wanted them to be folded, but you see our pieces are very rigid, and that's because these are very small pieces, and if you open the mesh, you see the mesh are too big for this piece, so we need to increase the particle distance for the bell loop pieces. So I select these pieces, and in property editor, in particle distance, I put 5. Now if I simulate, you see they are sitting better, and they are not as rigid as before. Now we can sew the bottom edge of bell loop to upper edge of a waistband. For this part I want to sew by the sewing tool in the 3D window, which is here. You see, and it's called a free sewing tool, and we click it on the 3D side. For sewing in the 3D window, you need to first click on the first point, then double click on the end point. And you might need to zoom like this. And I'm eyeballing where it should be sewn on the upper edge, and do it like this to the blue point and double click. Okay, now if I simulate this, this small piece might collide into my waistband. I can try to show you. You see how it is sewn. So I don't want to use this, and first of all I need to make sure this is not twisted, because the sign is actually in the middle. I'm not sure if the sewing is done on the right direction. Do it again. So any direction you choose on the bottom, you should choose on top as well. Okay, so in order to avoid that colliding, I am going to use the mesh tool and select this part, and on 3D window, when I click on this part, I see the gizmo, and I'm helping this piece to be on the right position to be sewn. And you don't need to be very accurate, you just need to bring it a little bit up to help it be sewn on the upper part, and you see it will be sewn correctly. One thing I see is that this bell loop is getting pulled. Let me turn off my avatar to see better. This is partly because this upper seam we forgot to turn it, so with the sewing tool I turn it, simulate again. It is better, but it's still pulling, and this part is loose and this part is tight. So what I'm going to do, I want to bring this point, this line a little bit lower, because it gives more ease to the upper part. Now you see it's sitting better. I think it's good enough for now because we don't have the actual fabric. We cannot say for sure we need more ease here. We can fix it later, but for now seems fine. We can add a little bit more to the bell loop if you think it's very tight, and I'm doing this with arrow keys, which will add 1/8 to my length. And okay, now I see it has enough ease, so I'm not changing it anymore. I will fix all other bell loops to be like this one, and we'll sew them the same way I did so for the first one. See you in next video for adding button and buttonhole or hook and bar for the closure.